my dear brothers and sisters, I'm very pleased to be able to speak to you today. We've done a great deal of work, as you know, through the consultation to decide about parishes and churches and parish boundaries and how we best organise ourselves geographically in our diocese and how we best distribute the priests that we have so that we can be growing as a diocese together, looking after one another's needs. But that's not going to work too well unless we add that vital ingredient of how you and I are trying to live our faith. Pope Francis is very clear about it. We're all missionary disciples. We can't leave it to the bishop and the priests to organise what the church does and what it is. It's for all of us to be proving what the church is by living the gospel. And Pope Francis says that means going out to the peripheries. Yes, we've got to look after our parish communities. We've got to make sure that we've got good catechesis, we've got a worthy liturgy, celebration of the sacraments, a good prayer life, that we're looking after one another in our Catholic communities. But that's only the first stage, because then we're prepared, as Pope Francis says, to go out, to make sure that we are a living witness in the communities, the wider communities in which we live. And that means looking after the lonely, the marginalised, the poor, where we live. And if there are big hospitals, we've got to be in there as volunteers, helping in whatever way we can. If there's a local prison, why aren't we visiting, making life just a little bit better for those people who are serving time and really looking to correct and amend their lives? We can be of great help to them too. But then we live also in a very prosperous part of our world, but an awful lot of people have been left out. There's so many people rough sleeping these days. Why is that in a city as rich as Manchester? So we've got to be making a positive addition in our local communities. And the terrible sadness of the Manchester bombing reminds us that we've got to be building bridges between our communities, making sure that there are no ghettos, there's no suspicion that because people have a different faith, they're in some way alienated from our society. No, we've got to know our neighbours, we've got to be close to them, we've got to enjoy their company and celebrate those things we hold in common together. And all the world's religions have very much the same principles of the sanctity of life, prosperity, the eradication of poverty. And it's so important that we join with them and make our own contribution to the communities in which we live. So we're launching Hope in the Future. This is a 5-stage programme by which I'm inviting every parish to look carefully at itself, to celebrate first of all that we do. And there's a great deal of good going on already in our parish communities and people working very hard. But to be able to recognise that and celebrate it, and to share good practice with other communities, other parishes around us. So there'll be 5 stages, and the first one begins in Advent of this year. I'm well aware that not all parishes will be able to begin at the same time, or to begin in the same way, because all the parishes in this diocese are very different. We have urban, suburban and rural parishes, and many of them are at different stages of development. But what I am asking is that in due course, all parishes will make their best efforts to understand and embrace and engage in these 5 different stages. And there'll be plenty of resources to help. One of the main purposes in Hope for the Future is to recognise the value of each person in the parish community. And we've also got to take away some of the responsibilities that have landed on the clergy, because we've had so many priests in the past that they've ended up doing rather more than their priestly ministry should indicate. So we've got to make sure that our priests do what they're ordained to do. And that means taking a lot of other responsibilities for the ministry and administration in our parishes and allowing individuals to serve the community in a much more fulfilling way. And Hope in the Future will show us the way in which we can engage. And if every person in our parish communities did just one thing in the life of the parish, we would make an enormous impact, not just in our parishes, but in our local communities. And we'd be living the gospel in a very creative way and responding to Pope Francis's urgent invitation that we be missionary disciples, living in mission parishes and bringing the gospel to the people, even at the peripheries, the margins of our society. And one thing we must be sure of as we begin hope in the future is that whoever we are in our parish communities, whether we're young, we're old, we're active, we're retired, we can pray. And prayer is so important. It's got to be the fuel that guides us through every step of the way, asking particularly that the Holy Spirit guide us in all that God would have us do and give us the grace to bring to completion everything that we undertake. And there is that prayer that we use in the diocese. I'm so pleased to hear it in so many places when I'm visiting. Stay with us, Lord, on our journey. It's so important. So I commend it to you again, that each day we ask that the Lord stays with us on our journey in hope in the future.